Hi, and welcome back to some English practice. This is English practice for level 1 students. So if you are learning English and you're at the beginning, this is the place to be. My name is Teacher Julie, and today we're going to practice the present and past tense while we talk about the weather. So let's pull that up for you. We've been also working with the question, what's the weather like? What's the weather like? Remember when we ask, what's the weather like? This is present tense, and we are saying, what is the weather like? For many new students, saying, what is the weather like is easier than what's the weather like. So please say, what is the weather like? What is the weather like? Or if you can, say, what's the weather like? What's the weather like? We know that is the present tense of the verb to be. Remember, I am, you are, we are, they are, he is, she is, it is. Weather is an it. It is not a person. So we will be saying, what's the weather like? It. Pardon me. It. Let's look at the picture. I will ask you a question and you say something about the weather. We'll do this one together. What's the weather like? It's rainy and it's cool. It's 12 degrees Celsius. Let's try again. What's the weather like? It's rainy and it's cool. It's 12 degrees Celsius. So you can say one answer, maybe two answers. Can you say three answers? Let's try. I will be A, you are B. Ooh, what's the weather like? It's very dry. It's hot. It's 46 degrees Celsius. What's the weather like? It's very cold. It's windy. It's a blizzard. It's a blizzard. It's minus 27 degrees Celsius. When there is and snow and wind, we say blizzard, blizzard. This word here, blizzard, is snow and wind together. Blizzard. It's a short I, bliss, blizz, blizz, and our sound for erd. Blizzard, blizzard. It's a blizzard. It's a blizzard. What's the weather like? What's the weather like? It's very hot. It's humid. It's 35 degrees Celsius. 35 degrees Celsius. Do not be afraid to stick out your tongue. The tongue is out for 30, 30. Don't worry. When you learn English more, your tongue, it goes in 30, 30. But to practice now, tongue out. 30, 30, 35. What's the weather like? It's hot and it's foggy. It's 25 degrees Celsius. How are you doing? Can you answer the question? What's the weather like? It's cold and it's frosty. It's minus 23 degrees Celsius. It's cold, it's frosty, it's minus 23 degrees Celsius. If you need to stop the video to practice speaking, do that. Don't just listen for me to speak. I want you to speak first. Let's try another. What's the weather like? It's warm and it's humid. It's rainy. It's 21 degrees Celsius. What's the weather like? It's cool and it's frosty. It's also snowy. It's minus 2 degrees Celsius. What's the weather like? It's cool and it's foggy. It's minus 5 degrees Celsius. It's also dark, right? It's night. It's not day. Dark, foggy, and cool. What's the weather like? It's very hot and it's windy. It's dusty. It's 32 degrees Celsius. The dust is when the wind takes the sand and pushes it into the air. So we can see here it's dusty. It's dusty. The sand is in the air. Dusty, dusty. So the weather here, it's hot. It's 32 degrees Celsius. It's windy. It's dusty. What's the weather like? It's cool and it's windy. It's 12 degrees Celsius. It's partly cloudy. So I have given you 4 answers. If you have one answer, that's okay in level 1. What's the weather like? It's cool and it's partly sunny. It's partly cloudy. It's minus 5 degrees Celsius. What's the weather like? It's hot and it's stormy. It's cloudy. It's 28 degrees Celsius. It's hot, it's stormy, it's cloudy. Maybe it is raining already. Those storm clouds could produce lightning and thunder. Those are all good answers. Do you hear my dogs? I'm so sorry. Every day I work, my dogs bark. What's the weather like? It's very dry and it's hot. It's 46 degrees Celsius. And maybe here it is dusty. What do you think? It looks foggy, but it's so dry, I think it is dust in the air. It's dusty, dusty. What's the weather like? The weather? Well, it's very cold. The sky is clear. It's clear. It's sunny. It's minus 36 degrees Celsius. Whew, that is cold. Okay, now we want to practice the same weather question, but we want to ask about the past. We want to ask about early this morning, last night, last week. I'm going to let you copy the present tense verb. I'm going to make my dog be quiet. You copy. I'll be right back. Okay, so you have looked at the present tense verb to be. Remember, I am, you are, we are, they are. He is, she is, it is. We use present tense when we talk about the weather now. Okay, what is the weather like? It is sunny. We also would talk about present tense weather when we ask about the usual weather in a country or a province or a city. I can ask you, what is the weather like in Victoria, British Columbia? I'm asking about the climate or the usual weather. So when I ask about now or usual weather, I will use present tense. But if I need to ask you about something that happened before now, I will use past tense of the verb to be. The past tense. I was, you were, we were, they were, he was, she was, it was. You can see if the pronoun is singular, just one person, we will use was for past tense. If we have two people or more, we will use were. So for weather, we would ask, what was the weather like? It was sunny. Okay. I can see that right now at my house, the weather is sunny. But this morning at 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., the sky was stormy and there was a lot of rain. So I can ask, what was the weather like this morning, earlier today? It was rainy. It was cloudy. What was the weather like yesterday? It was sunny. What was the weather like last winter? It was cold. It was snowy. So now we are going to practice past tense. Let's do it. What was the weather yesterday? Your answer will be it was. Try. It was rainy and it was cool. It was 12 degrees Celsius. And we can see in two ways that this is past tense. Let me just see this. We have our past tense verb, was, and I have the word yesterday. It tells me before. I know this is past tense. When I hear past tense, my answer needs to be past tense as well. Okay, so let's try the next question. What was the weather like last winter? What was the weather like last winter? Your answer, it was. It was cool and it was frosty. It was also snowy. It was -2 degrees Celsius. What was the weather like last Thursday? Last Thursday. Do you remember? You need to use it was. It was cool. And it was partly sunny or partly cloudy. It was -5 degrees Celsius. What was the weather like in Kuwait? Kuwait is a country in the Middle East. Hot. What was the weather like in Kuwait? It was very hot. It was windy and dusty. It was 32 degrees Celsius. What was the weather like in the jungle? What was the weather like in the jungle? A jungle is a forest with special trees that grow in hot, humid weather. The forests in Canada do not look like this. We do not have jungles in Canada. Our trees are very different. This is a hot and humid part of the world. It's a forest that is hot and humid. We call it a jungle. What was the weather like in the jungle? It was very hot and it was humid. It was 35 degrees Celsius. What was the weather like last night? It was hot and it was stormy. It was cloudy. It was 28 degrees Celsius. You can also say these are storm clouds. So it was lightning. It was thundering. Maybe it was windy and raining. There are many good answers for this question. Just remember to say it was. What was the weather like in February? This is very Canadian weather. If you look at this video and you live somewhere else, United States, Africa, maybe you do not have this kind of weather in February. But answer the question. What was the weather like in February? February. I just want to show you that when we say this month, we often don't say that R. February, February, long U, February. Okay, just a little speaking tip. What was the weather like in February? It was very cold and it was windy. It was a blizzard. Remember, blizzard is snow and wind together. It was a blizzard. It was minus 27 degrees Celsius. Ooh, that's cold. If you say it was snowy, that's also a good answer. So good, that's okay. What was the weather like last night? What was the weather like last night? It was cool and it was foggy. It was 5 degrees Celsius. What was the weather like in the mountains? Excuse me. Oh, it was very cold and it was clear. It was sunny. Clear is no clouds. It was minus 36 degrees Celsius. This is a good winter picture. What was the weather like in Victoria? Remember, Victoria is the capital of British Columbia. What was the weather like in Victoria? It was warm and it was humid. It was rainy. It was cloudy. What was the weather like in Manitoba? It was cold and it was frosty. It was minus 23 degrees Celsius. What was the weather like in Ontario? It was hot and it was foggy and cloudy. It was 25 degrees Celsius. What was the weather like on the prairies? What was the weather like on the prairie? It was cool and it was windy and partly cloudy. There's a mistake here. It was. 12 degrees Celsius? Whew, we'll just fix that. It was 12 degrees Celsius. We need to answer in past tense because the question is past tense. And that's our practice. I think if you do the video 3 or 4 times and practice your speaking, it will get easier and easier. So please stop the video and watch it again. Again. There's one way to learn English, and that is to repeat, repeat, repeat. Okay, this is not a writing video. This is a speaking and listening video. Tomorrow, we'll do a video and you will listen for the question. Is it past? Is it present? But for today, listen to the questions and practice the answers. Happy speaking. I'll see you next time on English Practice. Bye-bye.